All right, welcome to live stream number 2. It is an interesting day here. I have just set up a totally new studio behind the scenes. So, this is new lighting, all kinds of stuff that I'm still playing with. So, you're seeing in real time me testing out my studio for the first time. And today we're going to be
All
talking
right,
about
welcome
the
to
art
live
of the
stream number 2.
non-script. It is
And I just have to
an
mute
interesting
myself
day
here
here. I have just
because
set I'm getting an echo. So you're going to see in real time every Friday me doing this live stream thing, and I'm going to not be perfect at it at the beginning. I have just gotten one of these stream decks. I don't know if I can show it. It's kind of all spooled up in a wire here. But basically, what it allows me to do is switch between different screens. And the purpose of these live streams every Friday is not to be perfect, it's not to be super polished, although I hope I'm presenting in a polished way. It's because I've had requests from so many of you to show a little bit more of the raw behind the scenes stuff, because so much of what we see on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, all over the internet, on social media is polished. A lot of it is AI stuff. A lot of it is super overly edited, and it leaves a lot of people, business owners in particular, who are trying to grow their businesses with video, it leaves them wondering, so how do I get my stuff to look like that without hiring professional people, without, having a teleprompter, which those of you who know me know that I am very anti-teleprompter, and we're going to talk a little bit about why in this upcoming live stream, or the live stream one right now. And I just want to show you the raw and the unfiltered. How do these great videos get made? I've had a lot of feedback from those of you who are watching my channels saying, wow, like you're so polished and I love the packaging and everything, but you really wanted me to pull back the curtain and show you how I do that. Now, I'm not going to show you every aspect of it today, but what we will do is talk about what I like to call the art of the non-script. Now, before I get into this, I just want to be really clear. This does not mean that you don't prepare, and we're going to talk about that. What this means is that you are in a situation where you are imparting your knowledge, your expertise, because you should know what that is. So to prepare, I'm trying out my brand new, oh, there we go. Okay, it worked. Shout out, by the way, to Jason Brown, my friend who helped set this up from the Brown Report. He helped me get this all working, and I'm proud to say, look, I was able to get me and the slides together, and I have my buttons here to show me where to go. I wanted to show you this because this is my Canva. This is the presentation. This is what I prepared. This is everything I have for this live stream. Now, I had a bit of a rough opening. That's fine. You saw that was really off the cuff. I didn't script that, which violates one of my rules, by the way. But this is it. We have a plan, excuse me, a plan that's rough, but we don't have this like super buttoned up script where we're going to get all nervous if we forget everything. So, what I'm going to do now then is actually present this. Where are we there? Okay, we're going to present the art of the non-script. Okay, you saw exactly what was coming up. So you know that I don't have like some secret teleprompter or, something on my desk that I'm looking at. If I could show you my desk, like it's littered with stuff, you don't want to see it. This is it. This is the art of the non-script. And I'm going to take you behind the scenes now, all scrappy, how I go about creating my long form videos. So I want to take you through this process and just show you a little bit about how I think about this. And the very most important thing I want you to take away from this, if you remember nothing else, is that I don't remember lines, except for two exceptions that we'll talk about. I organize thoughts. Okay. Now, truth be told, before this live stream, I just got back from the dentist about 10 minutes ago. So I didn't have a ton of time to like prepare a really well scripted opening, but that's kind of the point. That's part of the vibe of this live stream is it's not the polish. Most people think, and most of my clients will tell me, but I need a script or else I'm going to forget or not know what I'm supposed to say, right? And as I'm saying this to you, just so you know, I'm not actually looking at my slide. My slide letters are pretty big, but I'm looking at the camera because if I go look at the slide and I read it, look what happens to my eye contact. So I didn't memorize this. I just know, like, people tell me they don't need a script. Because they're worried that they're not going to know what to say. And you see how I like kind of change the words because I'm not reading it exactly. And this is the central point that I want you to take away from this. So if you need to remember things word for word, basically, like, it makes me wonder if you know your stuff. Like, you probably don't know it very well. Another pro tip, as I'm going through this, because I'm showing you slides, but I'm also telling you how I'm using them as I'm doing it. It's very meta. I see words like remember, don't know, and those words trigger me to talk about things. That's how I remember where I'm going. Because another thing that a lot of people do is when they take this approach, they go off on tangents, a lot of tangents. And that is deadly for retention because people don't always follow you where you're going and you often don't stick to the point. So, having those words that really just trigger your mind, that's what we're looking for. Your audience can sense when you don't know your stuff, right? They can sense when your eyes are moving back and forth. I've talked in the past about how I really don't like teleprompters. That's why, because people just get that. If you're an expert at, let's say you're a chiropractor or you're a travel advisor or you're an interior designer and you can't talk off the cuff about your craft, then why are you out there teaching it or sharing about it, right? I get it. Sometimes people say, yeah, but the second the camera comes on, my mind goes blank and then I just forget what I was going to say. And that's camera nerves. I understand. That's not like you don't know what you're talking about, but in the repetition, in practicing what I'm showing you today and what I teach on my channel, you will get better at this over time. But I want you to, before you get all in your head about, being on video, being on camera, do I suck? Do I look good? Is my lighting great? I'm not perfect today, but you do know your stuff. So that confidence starts internally. It starts with you realizing that you know your stuff. You know what you want to say, but you just have to get better at organizing how you say it. So this is the process that I recommend you follow. And your first videos might suck, and that's okay. And they may not, but you do continue to iterate and get better. The secret is to really nail down the basics. So, what are the basics? We'll talk about that. All you need for this is your core points. Your core points are already up here because if you've come up with a concept for a video or you want to, show something, you already know the essence of what you want to say, or else don't make that video, right? Only create videos about things that you really know about or that you want to share experience or have a story about. And we'll talk about stories more. But we really want to make sure that those core points underpin everything we're going to say. And everything flows from there. This is the art of the non-script. What do your core points do? They trigger your expertise, right? One single word should be able to trigger you, or maybe it's a couple of words, will trigger you to immediately start talking about your expertise. And when you don't rely on a script or a teleprompter, then you can just tell it like it is. You can be authentic. You can actually impart your knowledge, your wisdom, your stories, because you're not so tied to the words that you plan to say that you're kind of fumbling through it all. Your natural speaking style automatically comes out when you use this approach of core points because you're no longer reading something, you're speaking, you're using the words that you would use if you explained it to someone you knew. And that's essentially what we're doing, right? We're explaining to someone that we know. And so having core points will give you that guide of what you want to say or the topic you want to say, but it won't give you the exact words to deliver it because that's where you start to lose your edge. That's where you start to sound like someone who wants to be a guru, or, you might start sounding like everyone else because you're trying to use certain sentence structures that kind of diminish your ability to really talk about something off the cuff. Now, remember, I showed you at the beginning, all of the slides, they just have these words on them. They're not, anything that I'm saying. And I'm not saying it perfectly, and that's okay. Because I'm going to talk a little bit later about what you do, okay? I don't want my videos to be this like stream of consciousness. Don't worry, we'll get there too. The third thing that having these core points does is it shows your personality. The reason that I decided to go live every single Friday on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, hopefully it's working. Let me know in the comments if you're watching on LinkedIn or on Facebook. Are you seeing this? Because technically, that's something I'm still learning, how to work all this. And thank you, by the way, for all your feedback about my, setup and how I'm doing this technically. But your personality shows through. You guys are seeing, how do I handle myself under pressure? How do I, recover when things don't go the right way? When I lose my slides, when, even professionals, even people who have been doing this, like myself, I've been doing this for 20 years in some form or another, behind the scenes, in front of the camera, in journalism, in advertising, in marketing, in sales, you name it. I've been in front of a camera and behind the camera doing it. And yet, I still have moments where, things don't go as planned and I'm not perfectly verbose on camera. I don't know about you, but in 2026, I don't really want perfectly verbose anymore. Now, I remember I said this at the beginning, and I want to emphasize this that non scripting does not mean not preparing. Let me say that again for the people in the back. Not scripting does not mean not preparing. Why? Because then you end up with this like long stream of consciousness video that bores everybody, right? So I purposely, deliberately did not prepare a script for the non scripting live stream, but I still have a guide, right? It means structure. And the structure I have is the slides that I have for you. Now, I don't always use this method, but this is one method you could use because the words are nice and big, they're on your screen, and they can be a crutch, especially if you're like really starting out with this approach and you don't just want to turn on a camera and start talking because, not all of us really enjoy doing that or have that skill. So have the structure. Give yourself the guide of those core points. Now, overarching the entire structure, before you start getting into like, okay, what's my hook and, the order of everything, and we will get to that, I want you to take a step back every time you create a video and ask yourself, what is the key message? What is the one thing that you want your audience to remember about what you're saying? Whether your video is 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, it doesn't matter. There should be an overarching key message to what you're saying. Now, there might be like sub messages, of course, especially if it's longer. It's not just like one point that you're spending like 30 minutes making, but it all ties to that key message. What is the core thing that you want to teach, impart, share, talk about, give your opinion on? You always want this to be something that you establish before you create a title, before you create a thumbnail, before you even create an outline or a structure. Your key message is everything. And we teach this in public relations. We do this in journalism. I mean, this should be really a central thing that you ask yourself every single time. So you want to ask yourself questions to get to this key message because sometimes it's not that clear. So you want to know, what do you want people to feel? Okay, because you have your message, but is it meant to trigger an emotion? You want them to feel like they're missing out on something if they don't have it? Do you want them to feel empathy? Do you want them to feel excitement? Do you want them to feel reflective, like they, got a piece of information that's really going to give them like food for thought? So really think hard about what you want people to feel, because we're not just here to deliver information. Information without emotion is just information, right? And then what do you want people to do? Now, some people construe this as, oh, it's all about, selling something or getting people to download something or subscribe or this or that. But you don't always want some kind of business outcome. Sometimes you're looking just to connect with people. You want them to go try something that you teach them and then come back and let you know how it went. Or you want them to do something in their day-to-day life that will improve things for them, like give them a quick win. They don't necessarily have to come back and tell you about it, although that's nice. But then you give them a purpose to watch what you're doing, right? So yes, it's about what you want to bring to the table, but remember, we're doing this for an audience. So what do you want people to feel? And, maybe in this case, you're watching this because you want to feel more confident creating videos without rigid scripts. And then what do I want you to do after this? Well, I want you to go try to create a video without a script, right? So let me know in the comments if that is resonating with you and if this is helping you. And my comments are on the other screen, so I will open that in due time. And then, of course, we know that everything revolves around stories. Stories build trust. Stories are the most important part of what you're doing. So, you want to build that trust without selling if you're trying to sell something. So, stories are really the bedrock of how we impart that information. So, when you're thinking about that hook or how you're going to start your video, starting with a story is great, right? You might want to add something at the beginning just to kind of call in a specific kind of person if you're still at the rate that you're like growing your channel and you want, that immediate off the top, yes, I know this is for me. But your story can also help you do that, right? Just as long as you're thinking that in the first 10 to 15 seconds, you want to make sure that the person that you want to watch it knows that the video is for them. So have your stories ready, especially when you're thinking of delivering something live like I am now. It's really important to incorporate those stories. I mean, I did right closer to the beginning talk about how I just rushed from the dentist and this is unscripted and all of that. That's like a mini story, a very simple, mundane story. But maybe you have like a deeper story that you want to start with that's really going to anchor what you're about to say. Stories are your compass. They're your North Star. And when you're going through and preparing what you're going to say, a great way to trigger your memory to really talk and riff off of something is to anchor it in a story. And remember, if you've watched some of my other videos or you came to the Video Storytelling 101 live stream, you can catch that on my channel if you missed it after this one. Stories really are supposed to relate to a point that you want to land with the viewer. We don't just tell stories for the sake of stories. There has to be like a moral of the story, right? So think of the story as your North Star. It helps you get to the next place that you're going. So often when you'll, read a book or tune into a video, people will transition between ideas with either a question or a story or something. So that's a really good way for you to be able to speak unscripted because you just tell the story like you were telling it to a friend. So let's talk about planning, because at this point you're probably wondering, okay, well, how do I plan this whole thing? Because I've thrown a bunch of stuff at you. So I want to give you a structure that you can really stick to as you start to implement this non-scripting approach in your content. First, and this is the only time, remember I said that there is only really 2 times that I want you to actually like script something and write it. That's your hook and your call to action. Think of it like a sandwich. So right at the beginning, we want you to remember that so that you can come out strong and deliver that to camera so that you can really hook that viewer. It can be a story. It can be one of those, catchy hooks that maybe ChatGPT helps you come up with. If you're having trouble, you can type in what you want to say and then say, give this to me in a hook that will automatically call in my ideal viewer. And then you also want to memorize your ending, your call to action. And that way you eliminate the stress of 2 things: not knowing where you're starting and not knowing where you're going at the end, right? You always want to have that escape hatch. You know what the call to action will be. If things go off the rails, you always know how you're going to end it, right? But it's not going to go off the rails. Don't worry, stick with me and we will get you to the point that nothing goes off the rails. And if you're recording it and it's not going live, then it never goes off the rails, right? You can just edit out what doesn't work. The second, and this is where I want you to create your outline, right? Remember we said we don't script, but we do have a plan. So this is your plan. And you've heard me talk about variations of this before if you're watching my content about storytelling and how to speak to a camera and sort of create an arc for your viewer to follow. There's the hook, there's the context. And in the context, you want to make sure that you cover what is that key message, right? What is the main thing people are going to get out of the video? Because people want to know if it's worth their time. And if you're just going through a stream of consciousness because you're not using a script, you want to anchor it in context because it'll also help you later on. Like you're like, okay, I really want to get this point in there and make sure people know why they're watching. So your hook should take approximately 30 seconds, 30 seconds are really like the magic number for YouTube. If you ever look at your analytics, you'll probably see people start to watch and then 30 seconds there's a drop, and your diehards, the people who like didn't click by accident or are actually invested, those are the ones that continue on in the video. And our goal is to get more and more people to do that. But then you want to get into your context. So what does your context include? First of all, your key message. You want people to know, like, why am I here? What is this person going to show me? That's very important. But you also want to preview what the person is going to learn, find out about, hear about through the video. And the context is important here because that gives them a reason to stay. It also, in the non-script approach, shows you where you're going, right? Because if you think about this non-script as like a race where there's different goalposts along the way, I don't have a visual of that, but that would be good for a future video. You want to reach each of those goalposts on your way to the finish line, which is your call to action. So you start with your hook, and then you've got your context goalpost, which is your key message. What do you want to say? Here, you'll also put maybe your expertise, like why should they listen to you? Why are you someone that knows this stuff, right? So I'll often say, I have 20 years in broadcasting and television, both as a television journalist and as an entrepreneur. So you put your credibility there. And then you quickly explain what is it that the person's going to get. And you don't have to be super formulaic about this. You'll see a lot of YouTube gurus out there being like, start with this, then do this, then go, in this video, you will 1, 2, 3. And that format's fantastic. It does work, and you'll see me do it. But you don't have to do it that way. You can be a little bit more fluid with it, depending on your niche and depending on the kind of content that you're creating, right? This is where you go into your bullet points. And this is where the true art of the non-script comes in, because this is where you're going to have your core points. This is where you're like, okay, first I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to talk about this. And you set yourself up to talk about those things, trying to weave your stories in. And if you're creating your plan, then it literally looks like this. You put your hook, you write that out. Your context, what's the key message that you want people to know? And why are you an authority? Why should they listen to you? Then you've got your bullet points. And under each of your bullet points, you can put a story that you want to tie to that bullet point. That's a great way to do it. And then at the end, you want your call to action. The other thing I want you to think about as you're looking at this, and I'm going to create a video for my channel. I'm doing 2 videos a week plus this live stream, so lots coming your way. And if you're interested in this topic, please do hit the subscribe and the notify button so you never miss a video of some of these tips that I'm teaching you now. But something I will talk about in a future live is what I like to call the connective tissue between those things. So we're not going to get into that today because I don't want to overwhelm you with too much. I just want you to kind of get this one outline. But the connective tissue is also really, really important. And if you watched my latest video on storytelling, that is also important because you need to re-hook your audience as you go through. So imagine in between each one of these arrows in the white lines, that's where your connective tissue will go. Okay, and we'll just park that for now. We'll talk about that in a future video. But just to give you an idea, that's like another hook to get you into the next thing, or it's like a question that you ask to go to the next point. Those are super important because as I'm showing you this art of the non-script, you do have these different goalposts, but you need the line that goes through and connects them all. Is this making sense? Awesome. Okay, cool. Film it in chunks. This is where I wanted to leave you because this is what I get asked about so much. Okay, so I've got all of that structure. I've got the plan. Now, what do I do? How do I make this into a video? And this is where the true art of, efficient YouTube video creation really shines and really comes in. And the reason that this is so important is because rather than trying to get everything out in one take, if you film in chunks and then stop talking, makes it so easy in post, in editing, to then go in and create a video that is cohesive, that moves. It gives you the opportunity to cut out things that maybe don't belong there if you wanted to edit it down. And filming in chunks releases you from that fear of like, oh God, I have to like spew this whole thing in like, one shot and I don't have a script. So I don't know where I'm going. I have to stop and collect my thoughts and think about it. Obviously, in a live stream situation like this, not an option, right? I just have to roll with the punches. But if you are filming and recording and then editing and uploading later, there's really no reason you can't follow this. And it will also help you create so much faster because you're not spending all this time wordsmithing and being kind of stuck in your, plan that you wanted to follow. You edit later. That's the most important thing. That's the key. So, that in a nutshell really is what I wanted to show you today. And I will leave it there. Let's see if my Stream Deck allows me to go to my camera. And like I said, I'm still learning how to use this. So, for those of you who are watching going, oh, what's going on? Yeah, I have to learn a little bit better how to switch things in real time. So we are going to end here. I'm just going to check the comments. And for now, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to make this bigger. Shape wide. There we go. Hello. All right, let's check out if there's any questions. I'm having trouble opening the chat right now. So leave your comments below. Ask me anything you want. Did this land? How do you feel about this structure? Does it work for you? Are you going to try it? Do let me know. And also, I would love to know any future live streams. What do you want me to talk about? I can actually sit down and kind of show you how I do a video beginning to end in terms of this process. We can talk about editing. We can talk about storytelling. There are so many great things I'd love to share with you in these live streams, and they really are for you. Now, another thing I wanted to mention for those of you who are still here, sticking around, if you ever want me to review something that you've done, or you'd be willing to have your stuff shared in this live stream, please do let me know. Leave me a comment. I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn or on Instagram or Facebook. I'm on all the platforms. You can DM me on any of them and I will get back to you. And let's talk about maybe using some of your stuff as examples, as stories that I can then give you real world feedback on what you're doing. And think of it as like a little hot seat sessions that we can do in these live streams, because I really do want them to have a different feel than the videos that I post, which are more packaged. And that's fine. That's okay. I mean, they're meant to really, give you as much value as possible. And then the live streams on Fridays is like where we hang out, right? This is our community. This is where I get to interact with you. So the more I can do that, the better. If you've left a comment and I haven't addressed it live, apologies. I'm still getting the tech stuff ironed out. Please keep the emails coming on how I can improve and do this better. And I will have this Stream Deck thing all figured out by next week. So for now, I just wanted to say thank you so much for sticking with me. Thank you for showing up on this live stream wherever you're tuning in. And remember, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notify button so that you never miss a live on Friday mornings again. Take care and have a wonderful rest of the day.